Wayne Keister. And ultimately, Sam Thompson. Sam is having trouble finding the handle. Oh, he had to go. Oh, man, he's finding the handle now. But first, one of the best drummers in the world right here, Mr. Paul Lyon. And finally,
he still doesn't find the handle.
He's bigger than all of us, so we'll just let it slide right now. Absolutely.
I remember times when he was climbing over walls,
Yes.
and the police wanted to keep him. I was at Joe Esposito's place.
Oh, really?
We were in there. It was
Sam Thompson.
Sam, right?
Oh boy, we got some things to talk about.
Wash his hands.
I would like to believe yes. I'm sure Sam washed his hands. To prove so, I didn't wash mine. Well, some of the gentlemen up here I've known for as long as 35 years. Others I've just met on this ship. And all of them, you're going to want to have a moment, if you can, while you're on the ship, just to say hi and get to know them, because they're all terrific guys and insanely talented people.
Oh.
And they love coming on these cruises because of the love that you have for the music that they've been involved with and the man that they've had the opportunity to work with over the years. And we will begin. I want to start with Sam. May I start with you, Sam? You wear many hats. You've worn many hats over all the years that you've been associated with this bunch. And can you just run through the list of all the things that you've done? You talked about many things in our conversations, and all of them have great stories with them. So just run the roll there.
Well, when I got out of prison,
Closer, pretty closer to your mouth. Very close.
boys,
Yes.
God speaks German.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I worked for Elvis. That's kind of the hat everybody wants to talk about. But I was a deputy sheriff in Memphis. I was a sergeant with the sheriff's department when I met Elvis. And I didn't go to work for Elvis really until about 3 years after I met him. And we were just friends, and I traveled with him. But after he passed away, that was me. After he passed away, did my best, Larry Strickland. How am I doing? Anyway, so after Elvis passed away, I went back to the sheriff's department, and I went to law school at night, 4 years. I tell everyone I was in the remedial section.
I think everybody could understand it. Should I translate?
So after law school, I was an attorney for the sheriff, and then I was a prison warden for almost 2 years, and then I was a judge for 10 years, and then I retired. And then I was a co-owner of a record company in California with David Foster. So we signed Josh Groban and Michael Bublé, the Corrs. Those were our artists. And after 5 years, we sold it to
Jimi Hendrix.
we sold it to Warner Music Group, and I retired again.
Nach Elvis' Tod hat der Sam als Police Officer gearbeitet und dann auch noch als
Vegas, and I met the governor. I ended up as the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission for the state of Nevada for 6 years, solar, geothermal, wind, and then I retired again.
Hat also dann
The only thing people ask me about is Elvis.
die einzigen Fragen, die gestellt sind, sind über Elvis. If we got problems with the law, we can ask you as well.
Next up, we got Larry Strickland. I've known Larry a little longer. Do we have a sound engineer that we can make any adjustments? Yes? Stay in the front here?
Stay in the front of the ship.
Okay. Adios. Larry? I think it's, they've set us right under the monitor. What's happening? Where are you from and how did you get started in singing and how old were you when that voice dropped?
Mit anderen Worten, wann kamst du in den Stimmbruch?
That was a bunch of questions you just asked me. I started singing when I was a teenager. And my dad was a minister, and he loved gospel music, and would take me to hear gospel quartets when I was just about 10 years old. And I learned, I got hooked on the music and loved it. And actually, one of the first bass singers that I ever heard sing was J.D. Sumner. And of course, I never dreamed that I would ever start working for him or with him. So, but I started, really young, and my voice, when I reached puberty, my voice dropped, and so, and I wanted to be a bass singer. So I wanted the low voice. As a young kid, I would work at it. When I would do my rehearsing and when I'm teaching myself to sing, I'd always pick the low parts to harmonize with. So
I'm going to translate at this point, otherwise it's too
I also,
long.
when I started drinking whiskey when I was really young. I'm not serious. Does that answer your question?
It does answer my question. Can I follow up, please?
Yes.
Now, 2 bass singers in a quartet would make 5. And how did you handle J.D. Sumner singing bass and you singing bass?
Yeah, that is a good question. It was actually Elvis's idea that J.D. hired another bass singer. Because Elvis would go hear J.D. Sumner sing gospel music when Elvis was just a kid. It was 17 or 18, Elvis would go to Ellis Auditorium in Memphis and hear the Blackwood Brothers sing gospel music. And so he thought J.D. was a star. And, which he was in the gospel world, J.D. was. And Elvis felt like that he was having to work. He wanted to create a situation where J.D. didn't have to travel unless he wanted to. So he had J.D. hire Richard Sturban, who was actually the first one they hired. Richard later left the Stamps and joined the Oak Ridge Boys. And then I replaced him. But it was Elvis's idea to have the 2 bass singers. So it worked because J.D. could sing so low he would actually sing an octave under me at times. Yeah. And then his big claim to fame was always a big slide at the end of all the big ballads and stuff. So, and Elvis loved those slides, and so it worked.
Also die Frage war, wie es überhaupt passen konnte. I translate that in German. Larry spricht sehr gut Deutsch. Don't worry.
If you, and many of you are these type of people, and you look at the records and you want to know who played on it and who sang on it and who produced it and who published the songs, we're all that way too. That's kind of why I probably got into this business, studying album covers. If you study album covers, the guy right here is on probably as many as any musician has ever been. I know last time I talked to him, he said he's on 520 million sales playing drums. Paul, would you please tell everyone where you grew up and what pushed you into drumming?
I grew up in East Texas, a little town outside of Tyler, Texas. We only had 1,300 people in our hometown. And when I was growing up, I heard rhythm in the crickets. I heard rhythm in driving a car with the old concrete streets going kapunk. Sorry, moving my hands like this. Anyway, I just always had a natural sense of rhythm. And we had our typical high school rock and roll band. And when I was 15, a producer in Tyler that was producing hit records on ZZ Top. Heard of ZZ Top? Rio Grande, LaGrange, Robin Hood Bryans was producing ZZ Top. And How. Great story about even that line we can talk about later if you want to. But John Fred and the Playboys, Judy in Disguise. Anyway, so he heard me play when I was 15 and he said, "Hey kid, you got a metronome in your head. Do you want to play on records?"
So, der Paul ist in Ost-Texas, East Texas, in Tyler, Texas aufgeboren.
Given me my first snare drum. My family is from Heidelberg. My grandparents were from Heidelberg. And so I feel very close to Germany and the German people. Anyway, so then when I was in high school, Ronnie Tutt, who I knew that was in Dallas, had gone with Elvis, and after the '68 comeback special in high school, I either wanted to be working with Elvis or I wanted to be working with Tom Jones. Those two situations were just my dream come true as a young player. I wanted to be with Elvis so bad, and all the guys I worked with in Dallas, that's where Ronnie left to go with Elvis.
Der Paul, der hat
In April of '77, and Ronnie and Jerry and Jeff asked me if Ronnie couldn't make it, if I would like to go with Elvis, if I'd like to play with Elvis, and I was like, oh my God, yes, of course, I'd love to do that. April, May, June, July, August. 4 months later, he was gone. So the very next month, I went on tour with Tom Jones. So my dream to be with one or the other came true. The dream to work with Elvis did not come true till 28 years later in 2005 when Ronnie had a conflict with Neil Diamond. I worked with Neil Diamond in the mid-'70s when Ronnie was with Elvis. And then Ronnie was out with Neil Diamond and had a conflict and asked me to do the tour in 2005, and that's when I'm the first of the next generation of TCB. Larry is the last one. I think we discovered he's the last of the first generation of TCB, and I'm the first of the next generation, I guess, to be brought into Elvis world. So it's a huge, huge honor and a dream come true for me to have worked with Tom Jones and the Elvis big screen show, and of course Shania Twain and Tom Jones and all that stuff.
Also
Anyway,
4
I want
Monate
to ask for
vor.
a big round of applause for Ronnie Tutt. He's one of the finest players ever to rock the planet. I want to show up to He's a great friend, he's a great mentor, a great friend. Our families grew up together, his kids and our kids grew up like cousins, and I can't say enough great things about Ronnie Tutt. He's one of my angels, and so Ronnie, I love you.
I don't need to translate that. Everybody understands.
Next up, we all are saddened by the news of Glenn D. Harden being unable to come to the cruise. You all understand why he could not come. His wife is very ill, and our hearts are with him now, and our prayers are lifted for him now. It's a very difficult time. Fortunately, another wonderful musician who toured with Elvis in the last years is Mr. Shane Keister. Please welcome Shane. He didn't know he was coming until about 10 or 11 days ago. You're going to Greece, you're going to Italy, you're going to Turkey with your buddies. Well, we're glad to have Shane here. And Shane, unfortunately, I know you leased. I worked around you in Nashville, but I didn't get to work with you a whole lot. And I'd like to know where you grew up. And I noticed in looking up some information on you that you credited just about every music piano teacher you had and every jazz teacher that you had by name on Wikipedia. So I think that's pretty cool that you remember them specifically. Can you tell us how you got into this crazy business and ended up with Elvis too, please?
I come from a real musical family. My grandfather, my mother's father, was a great violinist, and she was a good pianist. My father was a country harmonica player, so I had different, forms of music coming in. And I remember when I was about 6 or 7, I could read music already because I started studying piano when I was 3. And my grandfather would come to the house with his violin, and we'd play music together, read sheet music, and then he'd start from the front. He'd say, just play whatever you want to play. I'll play the melody. So I was blessed with learning the idea of improvisation when I was 8 years old. I played piano all my life. Went to Marshall University and Denton, North Texas State University. And let's see, I was 19, I think, when we moved to Dallas. I say moved to Dallas. Me and a bass player and a drummer decided we would become rich millionaires and top the music business. So we moved to Dallas. I met Robin and Brian, Paul's friend. I met Dale Hawkins. And he got me kind of interested in being a studio musician. I heard what it was. So I kind of set my sights on being a studio musician because I thought, I don't have to travel, I can play home and play music. Certainly, I'm sorry.
You can move your mouth, and I'm going to speak German, so people think you can.
So let's see, I moved from Dallas to Memphis because I was told Memphis or Nashville is where you need to go, or LA or New York. Well, Memphis was pretty close, so we moved to Memphis. And I started working with Stax Wolf, Al Jackson, Duff Dunn, and Crawford. And that was interesting, the way I started with him. I met Jim he ran Stax Records, and I was playing in a piano lounge during the day and working with a rock and roll band at night. Jim Stewart came in and said, "Hey, how are you?" I met him. He said, "Well, I'm doing a session on the Motions tomorrow." He said, "I'm not hiring you, but if you'd like to be a guest and watch the session," of course, I was like, "Oh, yeah." So I showed up at the studio about 10:30, 10 o'clock, and this piano player was Marvell Thomas. He was 2 hours late for the first time ever. He was always punctual. He had a minor accident, and the cops started hassling him, so they waited till about 10:30. The whole band was there, no piano player. So Jim Stewart said, "Shane, can you read music?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Can you teach the band a song?" I said, "Sure." So I started playing music, and somebody said, "That's great, let's just count it off and do it." And we did it. Then let's see, I worked with Chips Bowman in the American Rhythm section. He had on Elvis records with Chips. I didn't work on those records. Sorry.
Okay. Der Shane ist dann ab.
So I worked in Memphis for a while, and everybody left. All the musicians left. All the studio musicians left Memphis and moved to Nashville. So I did the same thing. I moved to Nashville and started working. And God just blessed my career. I was there for a month and started doing sessions. I guess I've been there for a month, which was unheard of. My career I started working 3-4 sessions a day, every day. Reggie Young, who was a great guitar player, the first year we made 800 sessions. 800 sessions. And I said, that's it.
Ich sag mal, das, was wir gestern auch schon von den Damen gehört haben, die waren hier, when you've got 800 cents.
Okay, I don't know. But the way I met Elvis, David Briggs was working with Elvis, and Lindy and James. Lindy and James both left the band, I think at the same time, and there was a tour right on the horizon. So I had just worked on one of Elvis's records, and Felton and Chip Young, called Jarvis and Chip Young. I said, let's get Shane Key Street. So I went out and did a tour in '76. And it was remarkable. I was in dreamland, you know, working with this band with Elvis Presley. Gosh. And then he passed away. And so it goes.
Hat dann eben halt
From Paul. He says, what you doing in 10 days? I said, I don't know. He said, you'll be in Greece and you'll be in, I'm like, huh? Yeah. I was trying to put it together what happened. He told me about Glenn D and his wife. God bless him. So I'm just honored and tickled to be here. Thank you so much.
I want to take your questions and ask them over here. And the second thing is, you know, for everybody who didn't pick up the photographs are when you're leaving there on the outside on the left-hand side. So we've got envelopes with your room numbers. So when you're leaving the room, please also ask for the photographs. But now the floor is open for your questions. Yes.
Thank you very much. First of all, obviously, I've probably got questions for all four of you, but I know that there's not time for that. I'm over here. Hello. Should I stand up? Will it make it better? That'll make it better. But my question is actually for Shane, because it's nice, even though Glenn's not here, Elvis works with lots of different piano players. And it's nice to have you so that we can get the point of view from a different pianist. How does your style differ, for example, from Glenn's playing style? Did you have to stick to any certain rules, or were you open to a lot of improvisation? Did you put your own sort of, I suppose, Shane Keister stamp on the piano playing?
Yeah, good question. Senior musicians all have to be able, we have to be able to play almost any kind of music. We have to be able to write our own charts, interpret the music, and make up the part, playing on the records. Glenn is a wonderful player. I don't know if I differ that much from him. I might be a little more melodic, he might be a little more rhythmic, I don't know. But I'm tickled to be in his shoes. Thank you.
Mr. Thompson.
What was the most different, dangerous situation with Elvis Presley?
The one I can tell, and the one I can't.
What you can tell. Was war die gefährlichste Situation, die mit dem
Well, you
Elvis
know, I mean,
erlebt hat?
all these women wanted to get to Elvis, and it's my job to keep them away. And I sometimes had to sacrifice my body. For the team.
Musste immer die Frauen vom Elvis weghalten und hat sich selber geopfert.
I would say a quick story because I haven't seen Shane since 1976. And when I first walked up to him and hugged him, he said, "Do you remember in St. Louis when that lady jumped on the stage and you missed her?" And I'm gonna let you tell that.
Well, I'm playing piano, and the piano's kind of in the middle of the stage in the back. And out of the corner of my eye, Elvis is singing to the crowd over here. Out of the corner of my eye, I see this woman jump on stage on the right side and start running toward Elvis. And I'm like, oh. I just said, Elvis was singing. She ran up and she tried to hug him, and he ate the mic. I mean, you heard it go, into his teeth. Oh, I can figure out how she got through to you.
She was faster than me. And
Also als das Sandy den Shane kennengelernt hat,
the
1976.
spotlight, and it was dark around him. So the first thing he knew, she was just there. She hit him like a ball player, you know. And so after the concert was over, we got in the car, and he was singing "Trying to Get to You" was what song he was singing. So we get in the car, and he just looks at me and says, "When I'm singing "Trying to Get to You," I didn't really mean it."
Elvis hat also
About Ronnie Tutt stopping somebody from getting to Elvis as well with a drumstick.
Did I dream that?
We heard that yesterday.
Who did we hear that from?
We had yesterday a ladies' talk show, Craig. You know, you were there.
Oh, that's right. Well, the ladies remember it, the guys that were there don't.
I tell you the story later.
Okay. Next question, please.
Not too many. Again.
Okay, so the thing was, you know, was Elvis afraid of something? Did he have fear or so? And if yes, what? Of ladies running to him? That's
Well, yeah, I just would prefer Larry not stare at me like that. Like he's like waiting for me to tell something he didn't want me to tell. Seriously, Elvis was concerned, to be honest with you, about assassination because, Martin Luther King was killed in '68, Bobby Kennedy was killed in '68. So he was very concerned about kidnap for Lisa Marie or assassination for himself. And we had to be very concerned about that. So there was that. We used to take Elvis through the back way through the kitchens. And I used to tell him, don't stop and shake everybody's hand and sign all those autographs. Because that's how Bobby Kennedy got killed in Los Angeles, because we had not cleared those people. And he just looked at me and said, he said, these are my fans, and he said, they're the reason that I'm where I am. And he said, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna sign those autographs. So even though he was concerned, his love for his fans was greater than that.
Also die Angst, entführt zu werden oder erschossen zu werden, war da. Ich sage einfach mal, es gab ja viele Beispiele damals, Martin Luther King.
I'm gonna throw one in here if you don't mind. Paul,
Larry's got a great story.
you got one?
Go ahead.
And he just gave me the mic back.
We'll get to that. Go ahead.
You wanna go with which one?
They are not sure if the story is for everybody's ears.
This is a great story.
For you, man. Yeah, when my first meeting with Elvis was in Las Vegas, and I was a new kid on the block. I'd never been to Vegas and hardly been anywhere. I was really green and not a worldly guy. But this was in '74, and at that particular time in the States, the kids, younger people, were wearing bib overalls. It was a cool dress for guys and girls. It was supposed to be a hip thing. And we were somewhere and I saw this pair of overalls and had bell bottoms, and I thought they were really cool, so I bought them to wear when I was in Vegas. And when I get there, the first night we're there, we get a call that Elvis wants to do a rehearsal. And so I asked Ed Enoch, who was our lead singer with the Stamps, I said, you guys, how do you dress for rehearsal? So he said, man, just whatever you want, whatever you get on. So I had those bib overalls on up to the rehearsal. And Elvis comes through the door. I'll try to cut this, make it short. He comes through the door, got the bodyguards, I'm extremely intimidated when I first see him, all the activity around him. He's going around hugging all the band members and all the guys and the Stamps. Finally comes over to where I'm standing with Ed and JD, and he's hugging them and all this kind of thing. And then Ed Enoch says, I want you to meet our new bass singer, Larry Strickland. And he put his hand out and shook his hand. And then he put his hand on Ed Enoch and pulled Ed aside, just about as far as from me to you. I could still hear everything he said. He goes, Ed, and I'm going to use the words he used, so forgive me. He said, Ed, where in the hell did you get the fucking farmer? And I heard him say this. said this, and then he goes around the rooms of the Sweet Inspirations and the rest of the band guys, and he said, "Hey, did you all see the farmer over here?" So I'm the laughing stock. Everybody's laughing at me. It's my first time. I've seen everybody, and everybody's laughing. So I'm sure. I was sure that they were the next time. I knew I was going to fire this. And what I didn't know is he really didn't like any kind of blue jeans or jeans to be worn, especially on the stage. And if you notice, you've seen the pictures when he was just a little child, he's wearing those bib overalls. And so I think that's one of the reasons he didn't like it. So he really didn't like it, but he made me the laughing stock of it. And I was hair-lit from then on.
You never wore jeans again. Anyway,
I have a question, if it's okay. I want to get one question in with Sam. It's okay? It's okay. There was an incident at Graceland. I don't know the year, but it involved Jerry Lee Lewis and alcohol. And you, Sam, would you like to enumerate?
Does the statute of limitations run? Well, one quick word about Larry's story is that he said he was the laughing stock until he opened his mouth and started to sing. And he was the star after that. You know, October of 1976, Jerry Lee Lewis came to Graceland, and he called upstairs, and the guard called upstairs to talk to Elvis, and Elvis said, "Well, has he been drinking?" And the guard, I think it was Vester, he said, "Yeah, I think he's been drinking. He was in a Rolls Royce that night." And so he told him he didn't want to see him, so Jerry Lee left. The next night, he came back in a Lincoln Continental, and he pulled up the gates of Graceland, and he actually had a pistol that had been given to him that he was going to give to Elvis.
okay. 1976 war der Jerry Lee Lewis.
He had stopped at Hernando's Hideaway and got pretty oiled up, you know, as you might say. He was drunk and other things. And so when he got to Graceland, his foot slipped off of the brake and he rolled into the gates of Graceland and Bentley. And I was sitting in the kitchen watching the monitor, and I saw that. So I went down, and by the time I got there, Vester had called the police department, and I saw the police officer pull Jerry Lee through the window and separate him from the pistol.
So am nächsten Tag war
You know, he had the right intention, and it just didn't work out as well as he wanted it to.
Also der Jerry Lee Lewis wollte nichts Böses, er wollte ihm Elvis ein Geschenk machen, aber es hat dann eben halt nicht so geklappt, wie er sich das vorgestellt hat. Anyway, just one question. Did they arrest him? Und er wurde verhaftet.
Another question from the audience? While Andy is speaking to the crowd,
Because I have to translate. You know, I can also do it in Dutch if you would like to, Frank.
do the Swahili, that would be fun. So can Larry tell a quick story while you're...
Yes, he can.
Go at it, Larry.
One of the first nights that Elvis ever sang "Hurt" on stage, he the very opening part of the song is "I'm so hurt," and when he hit the word "hurt," he did it just really hard and dynamic. And when he did, this thing came out of his throat. We call it a hawker. I don't know what they call it in German, but this big wad of stuff came out of his throat, white stuff, and landed on his microphone. And it stayed there. And he didn't see it. So he's walking around on the stage with this big glob of stuff out of his throat, singing, and he walks over to where we were at, where the Sweet Inspiration was, and the girls saw it. And so when he starts coming toward them, they're going, no, no. And he doesn't know what they're doing, why they're doing this. So he just keeps coming, they're gagging, they're going, it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Nowadays we would sell it on eBay. Ich weiß nicht, ob ich das übersetzen kann. I don't know if I want to translate it. Es hat gesungen und dann kam eben halt so ein bisschen, you know, the lady over here is asking, but I don't know if any one of you can answer that question. She's asking why Wester Presley, who was also Presley, is not buried at Graceland, why he's on a separate cemetery, because he was maybe not that close family, I guess. Yeah. Ich denke mal, weil wahrscheinlich nicht so. And then there's another question from our Italian friend, from Anton. Give you the microphone.
Nach den Dokumentarfilmen That's the Way It Is und Elvis on Tour kann man sehen, dass Elvis viel mit seiner Crew scherzt. War er eigentlich immer der Anführer von den Scherzen oder gab es von den Crews Leuten auch andere, die viel scherzten?
You see in the documentaries of Elvis on stage, or That's the Way It Is, you know that Elvis was doing a lot of jokes. And the question is, you know, in the crew itself, in the band itself, whether somebody else who was making jokes, or was always Elvis always the leader in doing jokes? You were the funny guy?
Warm and fuzzy. We used to take pictures and I'd look like this. And that said smile, and I said I'm smiling. Yeah, I would say that Elvis was the leader of the band in more ways than just musically. And I might add also that I'm the only person up here who can't sing or play an instrument. I'm just a dancing chicken. But, you know, he had a strange kind of offbeat sense of humor. You know, he liked Peter Sellers and Monty Python, and he liked that kind of humor. And so he, you know, he would say things and do things, and he also liked people around him that had that kind of humor. So we're all warped, all of us, you know, to that extent. And he enjoyed the laugh, and he had a very infectious laugh. And so, yeah, there was a lot of joking and kidding around, and Elvis was probably the instigator, most of it.
Also this is by the lady over there. She was asking if you still got contact to other Memphis Mafia members.
Well, what few of them there are left, yes. You know, but we lost Red and Sonny West, and Dick Grove, and Joe Esposito, and Joe Curcio, and there's not many of us left, really. Dave Hebler, I still have contact with him. He lives in Texas. Jerry Sheff lives in Texas. And Jerry Schilling, of course, yeah. Jerry, he's in Los Angeles. Jerry still lives in the same house on Sunset that Elvis bought him. Yeah. And he bought me a house, but I don't live there anymore. But he, you know, Elvis was a very generous man, probably generous to a fault, to be quite honest with you. Vernon told me one time that when Elvis was a little boy, they'd buy him a set of little pistols, and he'd come home missing one, and he'd say, well, I gave it to little Johnny because he didn't have one. And so when he grew up the same way. But yeah, there's not many of us. I guess we were talking, I think, Larry, you, and Ed Enoch. That's about it, isn't it? And Donnie Sumner. Yeah, and that's about it for you know, there's not many of us left. But yeah, I try to stay in touch with everybody. I'm Switzerland.
thank you for coming and being a part of this. Right up after this, Linda Thompson comes and we will spend an hour with her talking about her life and all the things that she's done. And Sam, do you have any stories on her you could tell quickly? But you'd rather not.
That she doesn't want us to hear. But she's already in the room.
Linda Thompson, everybody. And please give a big round of applause to our gentlemen who are on the panel today. Paul Lyon, James Easter, Larry Strickland, Sam Thompson. Tomorrow, from 4 to 6, the gentlemen will be signing autographs, and the next day it'll be 4 to 6 here. And the next day, the ladies will be here to sign autographs. And let's see.
And I'm also here because I'm selling photographs for them for you to sign, yes. So we're going to arrange that we've got a table over here, and I just want to make one more announcement. Linda is already sitting here and would like to listen to that. Everybody who had made a photograph, I said that again yesterday, you can pick them up at the door. We've got the envelope there with your camera. Yeah, don't forget.
Yeah.